The sharp spear tore through the air, hurtling directly toward him. But Kaian merely shifted his body slightly, effortlessly evading the strike. He gripped his weapon tightly, his eyes blazing with fiery determination. From all sides rose thunderous cheers, the crowd hungry for a brutal showdown. Kaian lunged forward like a predator on the hunt, taking his challenger down in a flash. Yet this victory was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a bloody conspiracy he had yet to uncover. From this moment onward, the fate of Kaian and the entire Hawaiian Islands would forever change. A new era, chaotic and merciless, was about to rise. Jason Momoa, the Aquaman himself, plunged swiftly into the ocean. His eyes scanned the surroundings continuously. Soon, he gripped firmly onto a fish's fin without letting go. After injecting tranquilizer into the fin, he actually managed to subdue a shark much larger than himself. But now, he was no longer Aquaman, nor some kind of shrimp or horse king. He had become just an ordinary son of a chieftain. At this moment, the Hawaiian Islands were on the verge of massive change. On one side were the continuous wars among 4 nations. On the other side was the impact brought by Western weaponry and culture. How would he make his choice? At the end of the 18th century, there was a stretch of water linking 4 kingdoms on the Hawaiian Islands. These were the Kingdom of Hawaii, Kingdom of Maui, Kingdom of Oahu, and Kingdom of Kauai. Relationships among these kingdoms were never harmonious. Wars and conflicts often erupted due to desires for each other's land and resources. However, there existed a legend on the islands. The star cloaked in feathers would signify the rise of a great king who would unify all kingdoms and end the age of war. The Hawaiians had waited generations. Finally, one day the divine omen appeared, but no king descended. That day, several people who had fled the Kingdom of Maui were hunting something at sea. Kaian, who was controlling the sails, was the leader of this small group. Suddenly, something flashed quickly beneath them. Kaian immediately ordered his companions to stop paddling, fold the sails, and attach ropes to each fish. They then tossed the fish into the sea. Kaian grabbed a rope and leaped decisively into the water. He opened his eyes wide, scanning all around. Soon, he spotted their target for the day, a massive shark. Kaian swiftly looped a rope around the shark's mouth. He then held onto the shark tightly, refusing to let go until it was completely exhausted. Seeing this, his companions quickly pulled the shark onto the boat, marking the end of a successful hunt. Kaian revealed a satisfied smile. They soon arrived at the territory of the Kingdom of Kauai. Since fleeing Maui, they had been hiding here. However, the people of Kauai treated them coldly. Children often caused trouble for them. This time, a child noticed a cloak whose color was exclusive to Maui royalty. Indeed, Kaian's father had once been the war chief of Maui. Yet, Kaian didn't want to remain trapped in endless war, so he renounced his rights and left his homeland. Noticing Kaian's gentleness towards the children, his wife teasingly said he must learn to get along with kids, since she wanted children of their own. Kaian smiled softly, warmth flickering in his eyes, but as they joked around, suddenly a horn sounded nearby. Kaian immediately became alert. He ran towards the shore and saw a ship sailing towards the coast, clearly a ship from Maui. Soldiers from Kauai were already assembled, prepared for confrontation. Soon after, an envoy from Maui appeared in front of Kaian. The messenger mocked Kaian, asking if he had truly abandoned his lands and titles just to survive ignobly here. He threatened Kaian, saying that tomorrow they must arrive at the beach on Maui Island. Otherwise, Maui would cut out the tongues of those who disobeyed. Left with no choice, Kaian reluctantly agreed. Early the next morning, Kaian and his group paddled their small boat to Maui's sandy shores, where a large crowd had already gathered. Guided by the people, Kaian reached the training ground. Nui, a warrior who despised Kaian, deliberately threw a spear at him as a provocation. Their eyes met, hostility immediately flaring between them. Seeing the situation, the envoy suggested they settle it with a fight. Kaian and Nui quickly assumed their stances. Their gazes locked. Tension filled the air. As Kaian charged forward aggressively, Nui hurled his spear, but Kaian dodged effortlessly. Moments later, Kaian pinned Nui to the ground, swiftly subduing him. Cheers erupted around them. At this moment, King Kahekili slowly appeared, accepting a gift made from shark teeth brought by Kaian. He then permitted Kaian to rise and speak. In reality, Kahekili had been the closest friend of Kaian's father. The king greeted Kaian's 2 younger brothers warmly before stating his intentions. He hoped the 3 brothers would return to the Kingdom of Maui and fight alongside him once more. Kaian, however, firmly refused. He had only come today as invited, but afterward he wished to return to his peaceful life on Kauai. The king remained silent for a moment, assuring Kaian he wouldn't be punished. He understood Kaian had reasons for leaving his army, and bore him no grudge. Kahekili then invited the 3 brothers to his tent for further discussion. As the king began eating, his subordinates informed the 3 brothers that Maui was facing an unprecedented crisis. Their prophets foresaw the people of Maui becoming enslaved by the Kingdom of Oahu. Spies reported that Oahu's army was more than twice the size of Maui's forces. Kaian frowned upon hearing this, asking why Oahu would launch a naval assault on Maui. The subordinate explained that Oahu's high priest had brainwashed their young king into believing that only war could bring glory to his nation. After hearing everything, Kaian still refused to fight. He and his brothers had grown weary of violence. Just as they prepared to leave, the subordinate mentioned that the matter was related to an ancient prophecy. The king finally spoke up, explaining that the prophecy was nearing fulfillment. Their royal prophet had specifically mentioned Kaian by name, indicating that only with Kaian's assistance could they defeat Oahu. Afterwards, the three brothers discussed this revelation with their wives. They had already tested the king's patience by leaving his army once before. Rejecting him again wouldn't end well. The brothers argued they should fight to defend their homeland, but Kaian stood firm. He refused to drag his family into another unnecessary war. His brothers, however, pointed out that the prophecy might offer the Hawaiian Islands their best chance for lasting peace. Kaian's wife reminded them that King Kahekili had never genuinely pursued peace. Thus, she and Kaian doubted whether he was truly the prophesied king. The next morning, Kaian awoke early and busied himself lighting a fire to cook. Soon after, King Kahekili himself appeared, asking Kaian to follow him, saying there was something he needed to show him. The king knew exactly why Kaian had left his army. In the past, the king had placed pride and glory above the well-being of his people, causing many warriors, including Kaian's father, to die needlessly. Kahekili openly admitted these mistakes, but insisted that the current conflict with Oahu was different, as it involved the prophecy. Kaian quickly refuted the idea. He had witnessed divine signs as a child, yet the destined child from the legend never appeared. Just as he finished speaking, they arrived at a small hut. Inside lay the remains of a skeleton, those of Kaian's father. Seeing Kaian's astonished expression, the king calmly explained that previously Oahu's high priest had made a prophecy. Whoever possessed a bone from the late chief and offered it as sacrifice on the battlefield could unify all Hawaiian Islands. Oahu therefore sought Kaian's father's remains, as his father had been the bravest warrior, and his remains were sacred according to prophecy. The king once took great effort to recover the remains, but Oahu's priest still managed to secretly steal a piece of bone. This was the real reason behind Kahekili's desire for war. He and Kaian's father had sworn brotherhood. If his friend could not rest in peace after death, it meant he had failed his vow. King Kahekili also stated clearly, if Kaian refused to help him, he would still allow Kaian and his family to leave safely. He would handle revenge himself, yet Kaian was no fool. He didn't fully trust the king's words, knowing Kahekili's character well. Once Maui attacked Oahu, it would inevitably lead to bloodshed, and innocent civilians would suffer greatly. Even if his father's remains had indeed been stolen, ordinary people were not to blame and should not pay the price. Kaian faced an impossible choice. Fleeing back to Kauai would surely spark war between Maui and Kauai, trapping him in a painful dilemma. At that moment, Maui's prophet approached Kaian. He told Kaian that an indecisive leader was dangerous not only to himself, but to those who followed him. The prophet revealed that he had clearly seen Kaian in the prophecy. Kaian was destined to aid the Chosen One in unifying the Hawaiian Islands. As to whether Kahekili was truly this Chosen One, the prophet gave no clear answer. He simply urged Kaian to accept his destiny. War was unavoidable. The only meaningful question was how to end the endless conflict. Despite these words from the prophet, Kaian still refused to aid Kahekili. He believed he could find a remote place where he could live peacefully with his family. Yet Kaian's wife reminded him that if the prophecy was real, then Kaian was the one fated to end the chaos. Wherever he went, his destiny would follow. Then the king's son arrived, delivering Kaian's father's weapon. The prince left the choice entirely up to Kaian. Whether to stand up and end the chaos or not was now his decision. Ultimately persuaded by his wife's earnest words, Kaian put on his feather cloak early the next morning, took his father's weapon, and alongside his two brothers approached the king. He declared his willingness to march against the Kingdom of Oahu and detailed his battle plan. Kaian proposed that King Kahekili lead warriors to the front, attracting Oahu's main forces without actually engaging them. Once Oahu's army gathered to defend the beach, Kaian himself would lead an elite force to attack the eastern fortress, capturing the high priest sheltered within the temple. With the temple captured, Oahu's young king would have no choice but to surrender. This approach would avoid needless bloodshed among innocent civilians. Without hesitation, Kahekili immediately agreed to Kaian's strategy. Shortly after, Maui's warriors sailed toward Oahu, executing the plan perfectly. Kaian led his elite troops to assault the eastern fortress, fiercely battling the smaller Oahu forces. Kaian first commanded a hail of arrows, followed by volleys of stones. The enemy line quickly crumbled. Kaian personally led a decisive charge. His warriors surged forward, morale soaring. Kaian and his two brothers fought with remarkable bravery, unstoppable like tigers descending from a mountain. Under Kaian's command, they swiftly took the beach. However, they urgently needed to capture the high priest. Kaian rushed toward the temple, but before he could apprehend the high priest, King Kahekili impatiently blew the horn, signaling a full-scale assault. Immediately afterward, Kahekili turned his weapons against the defenseless Oahu civilians. Hearing the horn, Kaian's heart sank. He quickened his pace but arrived too late. He watched helplessly as innocent people screamed and fell under Maui's blades, the warriors blowing triumphant horns. Overcome by grief and rage, Kaian approached another chief, asking if they had captured the high priest. But the reply came that they had taken the young king prisoner instead. Kaian saw the young king brought before Kahekili. The boy had idolized Kahekili, and even in his last moments could not understand why his hero had betrayed him. Observing Kahekili's ruthless actions, Kaian finally realized he had been deceived. Kahekili bluntly told Kaian that the prophecy declared the one holding the feather cloak and star of prophecy would rule all kingdoms, converting them by force. It was now clear to Kaian he had been entirely manipulated. Kahekili's son then approached, quietly admitting his father had deceived them both. Even he had only recently learned the king's true intentions. As Kaian departed, the prince ordered his men to keep a close watch on Kaian, forbidding any action without direct command. Kaian's wife, who had joined the battlefield, immediately comforted her husband, who was overcome with guilt. Meanwhile, back in Maui, a mother and daughter returned home to find several unexpected visitors waiting. The chief of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The woman was Kahekili's sister, and her daughter Ahu had been fathered by the Hawaiian chief. Upon hearing that Maui had unjustly attacked Oahu, the chief hurriedly brought his men to Maui, knowing all islands would soon be engulfed by war. Maui would inevitably become unstable. He wanted to take them safely back to Hawaii before Maui sealed its shores. Due to her mother's royal lineage, however, Ahu could only gain protection by marrying the Hawaiian chief. Although Ahu was unwilling, her mother agreed to the arrangement for her daughter's safety. Yet as a member of Maui's royal family, she decided to stay behind and share the kingdom's fate. Meanwhile, Kahekili's son confronted his father, demanding to know why he had ignited unnecessary war. Kahekili replied confidently, questioning why they should passively await the destined one. He declared that what previous kings had failed to accomplish, he would achieve, no matter the cost. Elsewhere, after realizing Kahekili's true intentions, Kaian refused to aid him further. However, they were still followed by men sent by the prince. Kaian secretly signaled to his companions, deciding to kill their trackers and escape during the chaos. When Kahekili finally realized something was wrong, Kaian and his group had long disappeared, leaving only a broken weapon and the body of the man sent to follow them. Furious, Kahekili immediately ordered his men to retrieve Kaian, determined to continue his conquest using Kaian's strength. Meanwhile, Kaian and his group had returned to Maui. They searched for a girl named Heka, who was supposed to be waiting there, but found only medicinal herbs scattered on the ground. They suspected Hek had gone to the medicinal valley to collect herbs. However, Maui soldiers were now pursuing them urgently, forcing Kaian's group to find Heki quickly. Just as they prepared to set off, they spotted a Maui warrior standing nearby, gripping his weapon menacingly. Kaian immediately stared him down, drew his own weapon, and prepared to attack. The warrior attempted to alert his companions, but Kaian swiftly threw a rope around his neck, pulling him up a tree and strangling him to death. Unfortunately, the man's cry for help attracted more Maui soldiers. Kaian instructed his family to find Heka, while he himself sprinted in the opposite direction, luring away their pursuers and providing his family a chance to escape. Soon, Kaian's figure disappeared into the wilderness, prompting Maui's warriors to split up and continue searching. However, neither side knew that, as they fought internally, a group of foreigners armed with guns had quietly landed on the island by boat. Meanwhile, Ahu's mother found her daughter, who still resisted the arranged marriage. She advised Ahu to seek out the prophet for guidance. After leaving behind the wedding garments, her mother turned and departed from the cave. Ahu eventually dressed herself and arrived at the beach her mother had mentioned. Shortly afterward, the prophet appeared before her. Ahu explained her predicament and then asked if there was any happiness in her future. After a moment of silence, the prophet shook his head gently. He had foreseen that Ahu would disappoint both her father and the Hawaiian chief, as she would never bear the chief and heir. While many of her paths led to pain, one route would grant her freedom, but this path was beyond her ability to find alone. Instead, a guardian who would soon arrive would help her. Hearing this, Ahu's heart trembled with emotion. Even after returning to the cave, she paced anxiously, unable to calm herself. At the same time, Kaian's family managed to locate Heka, while Kaian himself was still fleeing from Maui soldiers. Soon, he was discovered by his pursuers and knocked to the ground with a stone sling. Struggling to his feet, he rushed deeper into thick bushes to hide, catching his breath momentarily. Yet the warriors relentlessly pursued him. Luckily, Kaian stumbled across a wild boar accompanied by piglets. Seizing the chance, he grabbed one piglet and hurled it toward his pursuers, enraging the mother boar. The animal charged at the soldiers, allowing Kaian a timely escape. Exhausted, Kaian eventually reached a cave near the shore, coincidentally the area where Oahu was staying. The kind-hearted Oahu sheltered Kaian after he collapsed unconscious. When Kaian awoke that night, he cautiously questioned Oahu's identity, wary of how much she knew about the chiefs and royal lineages. Oahu openly shared her background, revealing that her mother was Kahekili's sister and her father a chief from the Kingdom of Hawaii. Due to fear of the king's wrath, she had grown up hidden in this cave. Kaian chose to trust her and explained his own situation, that his father was once a war chief, but he no longer wished to serve the king. Smiling, Oahu remarked that it seemed both their lives had been complicated by Kahekili. The next morning, as sunlight illuminated the cave, Kaian discovered firearms stored within. Oahu explained her father had obtained these guns from white foreigners who had visited the islands. Every time her father discussed their destructive power, fear filled his eyes. Kaian, however, scoffed at the weapon, confidently declaring that his speed surpassed any firearm, easily enough to defeat the foreigners. Rather than worrying about more white men coming ashore, he planned to quickly reunite with his family before Kahekili's men caught them. Oahu immediately offered assistance, revealing she had prepared a small boat. If Kaian agreed, they could all travel together to Hawaii for safety. Kaian considered briefly before agreeing to her proposal. Soon they set off together to find his family. Along the way, Kaian and Oahu unexpectedly encountered the group of foreigners who had landed on the island searching for supplies. One foreigner hurriedly summoned their captain, and another immediately raised his firearm toward Kaian. The captain swiftly intervened, ordering him to lower the weapon to avoid alerting the entire island with gunshots. However, the noise had already drawn the attention of Maui warriors nearby. In an instant, Kaian threw his weapon, killing a Maui soldier attempting to ambush them. Afterward, he quickly moved on with Oahu toward the valley, leaving the foreigners behind. The captain then discovered a firearm next to the fallen warrior, realizing one of their missing crew members had likely been killed. He quickly ordered his men back to their boats to leave the island, just as Maui warriors began closing in from behind. Understanding that traveling together increased their risk of capture, Kaian handed his family's emblem to Oahu, instructing her to find his family and head for the Kingdom of Hawaii. He would draw off the pursuing warriors himself. They separated, with Kaian racing through the forest, successfully luring away all the pursuers. Meanwhile, Oahu fulfilled Kaian's trust by safely locating his family. Upon reaching the beach to depart for Hawaii, they noticed a foreigner who had been accidentally left behind by his companions. Oahu understood clearly that leaving this foreigner stranded on Maui would mean certain death, so she decided to bring him along to Hawaii. Elsewhere, Kaian's flight ended abruptly as he reached the edge of a cliff, finding himself trapped with no path forward. Facing numerous Maui warriors alone, Kaian fought bravely, but was eventually overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Realizing further resistance was futile, Kaian made a desperate decision. With a fierce cry, he grabbed hold of several warriors and threw himself from the cliff into the sea far below. Observing from above, the Maui prince insisted his men recover Kaian's body. Yet unknown to them, Kaian survived the plunge into the ocean below. Kaian opened his eyes to find himself aboard a ship. The foreigners who had left the island earlier had rescued him. Previously, Kaian had helped save one of them, and now they had returned the favor. Rushing onto the deck, Kaian saw that the ship had already traveled far from Maui. A sense of worry overcame him as he wondered how he would reunite with his family. This marks the end of the first 2 episodes of Chief of War. From the current storyline, the series effectively mirrors real historical events. The transformation of the Hawaiian Islands from internal division toward involvement by foreign powers. The ongoing conflicts among the 4 kingdoms, Maui's aggressive attack on Oahu, Kauai's neutrality dilemma, and Hawaii's detached observation all vividly recreate the political climate of the late 18th century Hawaiian Islands. In reality, the islands long existed under tribal fragmentation, engaging in wars and intermarriages for resources. It wasn't until 1795 that King Kamehameha I gradually unified them. Significantly, Kahekili's ruthless slaughter of Oahu civilians and betrayal of its young king in the series shatter the illusion of unification as a just cause, subtly contrasting with Kamehameha's historical unification, which, though violent, ultimately stabilized through laws and the adoption of Western technologies. Additionally, the Foreigner's brief appearance in the series may seem incidental, but is crucial in foreshadowing the collision of civilizations. Historically, British explorer Captain Cook's 1778 discovery of Hawaii brought missionaries, merchants, and firearms, permanently disrupting the island's isolation. Kamehameha leveraged these Western weapons and military strategies to succeed in unification. It remains to be seen how the series will further explore this critical turning point in Hawaiian history. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Your likes, comments, and follows greatly encourage us. See you next time.